Namaste. Good evening. Great to be with you. Namaste, Catherine. Namaste, Sat. We'll start with a prayer. Mm. Om. 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 Om Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavat Padam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Bhadarayanam Sutra Bhashakratau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Guruvatmeti Murtibheda Vibhagine Vyomavatyaptadehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviran Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Peace be, peace be, peace be. Now we'll chant the Shantipata together. So you can repeat after me. Om Shanno Mitra
Om Shanno Mitra
Shambarunaha
Shambarunaha
Shanno Bhavatvaryama
Shanno Bhavatvarma
Shanna Indro
Shanna Indro
Brahaspatihi
Brahaspatihi
Shanno Vishnu
Shanno Vishnu
Rurukramaha
Rurukramaha
Namo Brahmane
Namo Brahmane
Namaste Vayo
Namaste Vayo
Tvameva Pratyaksham
Tvameva Pratyaksham
Brahmasi
Brahmasi
Tvameva Pratyaksham
Tvameva Pratyaksham
Brahma Vadishyami
Brahma Vadishyami
Ritam Vadishyami
Ritam Vadishyami
Satyam Vadishyami
Satyam Vadishyami
Tanmamavatu
Tanmamavatu
Tadvaktaramavatu
Tadbhaktaramavatu
Avatu Mam
Avatu Mam
Avatu Vaktaram
Avatu Bhaktaram
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti
Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Beautiful. So, as we've been seeing, it's a legitimate way to purify the mind, chanting these Vedic mantras. We saw that at the very beginning of the study, they're called mantra. So, manana trayate iti mantraha. When you chant it and repeat it, it protects you. And we find in the mantra itself, you find all throughout the Upanishad, this repetition. that use of repetition as a way to evoke a greater force in you and also invoke that memory power. Vridam vadishyami, satyam vadishyami, that repetition. So that's very powerful. You feel the force of that when you chant it. And the last mantra that we're seeing was unique in that we were learning about the Vedic culture and how prosperity played a really big role. So let us make our way to that mantra. Here we were seeing that there's a homa or fire ceremony. And the key principle here that we're finding in this culture is the idea of never neglect your welfare, that we should have a flourish together. So there, it seems a bit funny on the outset when we make some kind of English translation of these mantras. But for example, the statement, "May I be famous amongst people," may I be the most, may I be the most well respected or superior. Shrayan, may I be superior amongst all those around me. That sounds a bit curious, but the meaning of that is not self-aggrandizement, to hoard and possess. The spirit behind that is that when you accumulate wealth, it enables you, it empowers you to serve others. It empowers you to be a contributor and charity. So the idea, the spirit in this particular mantra, which we'll look into again, is may I bless the world around me. May I be able to share freely. And then even if you take maybe a lower understanding of that, is that our idea in the Vedic culture too was that artha and kama are also part of the human being's needs, their nutrients. So the desire for sense pleasure and also the desire for some indulgences, we allow that, but in a healthy way, in a moderated way, or a way that's in alignment with Dharma. So that way it's so beautiful. Our desires are not really a problem. You can have any amount of desires you want, but if they flow along the line of Dharma, your calling, or your greater commitment, then it's perfectly acceptable. Now, but for that kind of wealth, that accumulation of wealth, what was being asked for in this mantra, we saw that to do that, you have to have a certain intelligence because we've all witnessed examples of people who accumulate a mass amount of wealth but don't have the proper state of mind to be able to distribute it freely or to be able to use it wisely. So that's why we saw earlier that that mantra on Omkara came. Do you remember that? Yes, Chandasam. If you see in the book, yes, Chandasam Rishabho Vishwarupaha. Chando Bhyodamrata Atsambhabhuva. So there is a meditation, a japa, a mantra there for repetition that helps purify that intellect. So to be able to chant the next two mantra here, the homa for invoking that wealth and prosperity, we should have a pure mind. So one way you can look at this is that intelligence that was being asked was really intelligence is the ability to act with a larger, from a higher standpoint or a larger viewpoint. So maybe your action is springing from an inner commitment. You have a certain principle that you care about, and then you base all your actions around that. That's one way to think about intelligence, which human being is capable of. Or maybe it's maybe you're really factoring in the context with your action. How will my action influence and affect those around me? Have I considered that? And if you have, that could also be called intelligence. What else? Time. Time is about consequential thinking. These are all about ethics. How do we, what's a good or most conducive action? Time is another factor. How will my action affect my future? Am I drawing from what I've learned in the past when I act? See, all of this plays a role in intelligence. Another way to measure intelligence too is maybe it's not by the context or time, but maybe it's just by a great role model. You have a particular hero in your life and you look to that person I find that in the Christian tradition, that statement, what would Jesus do? So you have an ideal role model, and then you can align your actions around how Jesus behaved in his life. It's a beautiful idea and very useful too. Sometimes we need that alone because our mind can get confused and cluttered with lots of different options. So just follow the role model. That's another way of thinking about ethics. But so that's the idea. In Vedic culture too, there's no sin really. It's called papa in Sanskrit, and the papa just means that it's not really about you're making a mistake. It's not really a commission. You could rather think of papa or sin in Vedic culture as an omission from staying in alignment with that higher perspective. An omission from following your guiding principle, or an omission from taking aware of other people, or not being aware of your future consequence. You could consider that papa, which is more just an error or deviation. But not to worry, because mind doesn't have to follow that same track. Typically, when we make a groove in the mind by our action, every action that we take leaves a certain impression in the mind. The tendency is once that groove is carved, it's very easy to keep deepening that groove and for all of our tendencies to flow down that way. But those seers gave us a great mental tool to be able to recarve positive grooves and then also get a handle on our thinking process. And that's why japa. So all of this to say that japa on omkara, we saw the Indra there meant the om as a deity, is chandasam, Rishabho Vishwarupha, that all faced mantra om. When you chant this mantra or you take up some particular mantra given by the guru for your daily study and chanting, that will help create that inner intelligence, that higher standpoint by which you act. And from there, let all the prosperity flow. So I'll just chant these mantras that we left off with. Avahanti vitan vana kurvanna chiramatmanaha vasagumse mama kavascha annapane cha sarvada tato me shriyamavaha lomasham pashubhi sahaswaha amayantu brahmacharina swaha vimayantu brahmacharina swaha pramayantu brahmacharina swaha damayantu brahmacharina swaha shamayantu brahmacharina swaha. So there, avahanti, bringing, the Shri is invoked there, that happily produced goods. May they come to me soon. So the guru asked for clothes, wealth in the form of cattle, food and drink, and then quality items, sheep, swaha, and then that's offered into the flame to be received properly. Then lastly, a cry out for good students from all over and many numbers to come. Those are called brahmacharis, students who are ready to hear the truth. May they be coming in large numbers and well-disciplined. So let us take up this next mantra. Here the homa continues, and you can repeat after me. Yasho jane asani swaha.
Yaso jani asani swaha.
Shreyan
Shreyan
vasyaso
Vasyaso
asani swaha.
Asani
Asani
swaha
swaha.
Tam tva bhagav
tantva bhaga
Bhaga
pravishani
Pravashani
swaha.
Swaha
swaha
Sama bhagav
sama bhaga
Bhaga
pravisha swaha.
pravisha
Pravisha Swaha
swaha
Tasme in
Tasmin
in
in
Tashrashake
Sakshashate
tashrasake
Nibhagaham Twayi
vibhagaham
Nipagaham
tvai
Tvai
Mraje.
Mrije.
Swaha
Swaha.
Yata Pravatayanti
Pratapa. Pratayayanti.
Yata Masa
Yatamasa.
Aharjaram
Aharjaram.
Evam Mam
Ehamam.
Brahmacharinaha
Brahmacharinaha.
Datarayantu
Datarayantu.
Sarvata
Sarvataha.
Swaha
Swaha.
Prativeshosi
Prativeshosi.
Pramabhahi
Pramapahi.
Pramapadyasva.
Pramapadyasva.
So Homa is still going on, as you saw the Swaha. So you have to visualize that, sitting around the Havan Kund, offering the samagri, ghee, every time. So what's continued in here? Yashaha. May I be successful. Yashas means fame. But there that fame, as we were saying, is for the dissemination of spiritual values and then the ultimate truth, the Vedanta. So may I gain that status. Yasho Jane Asani Swaha, may it be. Also Shreyan Vasyaso Asani Swaha. May I have that respect and be superior or a higher level of status. Therefore, that I can use my intelligence, my larger perspective, to serve and influence people for the good. So it's a beautiful attitude. And that's revealed. So the sincerity of that and the purity of that intention is revealed immediately following this next statement. Tam twa bhagav pravishani swaha. O Lord, bhaga means brilliance. That Lord or Omkara, may I become one with you. Pravishani swaha. That's the statement there. May I become one with you, or may I merge with you. Sama bhagav pravisha swaha. May you merge with me. That reciprocal love is said there. And then add an attempt, a humble attempt to qualify what that bhaga or that Lord is. Tasmit in sahasrashakhe. O Lord, or in that God of 1,000 branches. Sahasra Shakhe. Sahasra means 1,000. Meaning that God is far reaching. You'll find that number comes up in the different stotrams or different chantants like Vishnu Sahasranamam, the 1,000 names of Vishnu. Why 1,000? Actually, you could never say enough, because we're talking about Bhagavan's glory. And there in Bhagavan's glory, there's no flattering. You cannot flatter God, because God is Sarvagniha, all-knowing, Sarvashaktiman, has all the power, Sarvavyapti, everywhere. So no matter what you say, it will never equate to the glory of God. So 1,000. 1,000 is a number that indicates the infinite. So Sahasra Chakra. It doesn't mean a finite number there. It means it's a way to integrate the infinite. So tasmin sahasrashake nibhagaham twayi mraje swaha. That key word there is nimraje. May I dissolve into you. So immediately we see that the attitude behind that request for wealth, prosperity, fame, respect is coming from a very deep place, from a higher place. That's the intelligence. Nibhagaham tvayim raje swaha. May I dissolve into you. You can think of that as a request to, may I cleanse myself of any thoughts of gaining this for my own selfish needs. Nimraje. Now the guru or whoever's performing the homa slips into that ecstasy of feeling that oneness and turns into a poet. They become a kavi. Yatha pav pravadayanti. As the water, so he says, as the water flows downward through those rivers and channels, it's effortlessly flowing. It's like it can't be stopped. As it's flowing, the same way, yata masa aharjaram, as the months, without any effort, flow into the years. Evam ham brahmacharinaha. May those brahmacharis flow to me. Look at that. Yatha pravatayanti. Just as the water can't help but flow in that direction to merge with the ocean. In the same way that we can't stop the ever flow of time as the months dissolve into the years. Similarly, may all those good brahmacharis meet me. Evam mam brahmacharinaha. So too, mam to me, brahmacharis, they come. Dhatarayantu sarvata swa'a. And from all places. And then prativeshosi, you are my ultimate refuge. Pramabhahi, protect me. Pramapadyaswa, come to me. So, what a forceful prayer. So this really reveals those nobility of the intentions here in the homa. And those brahmacharis, what are they seeking? That Brahma Vidyam. Discussion on that is to come, but the knowledge of Brahman. They've experimented with lots of different kinds of knowledge, but here they're looking for the knowledge of Brahman. So that's the incredible responsibility and intensity of a teacher of Brahma Vidyam is that they also are operating a body-mind ego complex. With that comes the part of that nature is entropy and disturbing, stupefying states. Mind is an instrument like that. So it can move into those states. So there's always that alertness in the teacher to not become prideful or to keep their heart pure, even when they reach these statuses or accomplish their desired goals. So that's why prativeshosi, that devotion comes again. You are my ultimate refuge. Prativeshosi. Then also pramabhahi, protect me from that tendency. Pramapadyasva. Come to me. Continuing. So homa is complete. Now we move into a different section. So this next section is on more upasana. So we were seeing earlier those upasana that have the same intention this year to help expand the mind. So here you're not so trying to laser focus on something, but rather you're giving your mind an avenue to move in a positive way. And you're starting to realize the interdependence that will come more and more and become more deeper. But these upasana make the mind very free when you start to feel the whole world around you, inside and out, is interdependent. There's a certain relationship inside and out that depends on one another. So these particular meditations are called Vyahriti Upasana. Vyahriti means connections. You see the connections. And here we find connections that were revealed by a sage or a rishi, a seer, and that seer was Mahachamasya. So for those of you who were seeing the Monday morning meditations, we went through all of these as a meditation. So this will be familiar to you, but it's good to review it. So there's this great rishi. Rishis mean by their own discipline, their tapas, their self-reflection, their surrender to the Ishvara, they get insight, those kind of revelatory knowledge where everything becomes very clear. And in such clear mind, you understand how things are structured in the universe. And then those seers can then share that with their students. So here the Rishi is Mahachamasya. So his name comes not all the time. We don't always know the Rishi's name, but here we pay respect to him. So let's see what these different upasanas are. So I'll chant this next mantra. Bhur suvariti va etastisra vyahritayah tasamuhasmetam chaturthim mahachamasya pravedayate maha ite tad brahma sa atma anga anyanya devata. So you can repeat after me. Bhur
Bhurabhuva
suvariti va
Suvaritiva
etastisra
Etas Vishnu
vyahritayah
Vyartayaha
tasamuhasmetam
Tasamah Smetam
chaturthim
Chaturthim
mahachamasya
Mahachamasya
pravedayate
Pravedayate
maha ite
Mahaiti
tad brahma
Tad Brahma
sa atma
Saatma
angaan
Angaan
anyan
Anya
devata.
Devata.
Okay, so sage Rishi Mahachamasya is the revealer of these particular meditations. They're centered around these mystical symbols or utterances of mantra that are bhuhu, bhuvaha, suvaha, or swaha. These three. And those three are always connected with a transcendental or a fourth that's called mahaha. So the three and then the fourth, which supports or nurtures them. So that's bhuhu, bhuvaha, suvaha or swaha, and then mahaha. The rishi saw that these three symbols or sounds could be a way of explaining 16 factors that make up the whole universe. So the universe is structured here in 4x4. You can think of this like a 4x4 grid where there's 4 factors times 4. And that becomes 16 parts of the Brahman. Iti tat Brahma saha atma. This is the body. Angani. It's also the limbs of the Brahman. So meaning understanding the relationships between the Saguna Brahman or what we see in nature. Getting connected with that. So that 3 is an important, we've seen it before, but the 3 is an important number. You can find so many different kinds of 3s. The A, U, the 3 in Om. You can think of past, present, future, or 3 gunas, sattva, rajas, tamas, or waking, dream, sleep. So that connects with bhu, bhuvaha, and suvaha too. Bhuhu means gross. Bhuvaha means subtle. Maha means, or suvaha means causal. But in all these 3, there's always a 4th or transcendental dimension that nourishes them all. So we saw with Om, it's the silence from which it's emerging. So what we see here in the next mantra is 3 factors that make up our day experience or the world experience. And what is the 4th that nurtures them? Let's see that now. So this is the first meditation. Bhuritiva ayam lokaha bhuva ityantariksham suvaritya saulokaha maha ityadityah adityena vava sarve loka mahiyante. So the key word there is loka. Loka means a field of experience, and here it's the waking experience that we share. Waking experience is unique because it's shared. It's not a private experience. We have the capacity to project our private experiences to color the world, but the world is shared, not created by an individual mind. What is that world or day composed of? So, what are those syllables? Bhuhu, bhuvaha, suvaha. So, what's amazing about that is the rishi can just use that mantra and then it superimpose these different factors upon it. So, all the student needs to know is bhuhu, bhuvaha, suvaha, and maha. And then all of this wisdom will come with that. So here, bhuriti va ayam lokaha. The bhuhu represents the world around us, lokaha. That means the nature that you see directly around you. Bhuva iti antariksham. Bhuvaha, that second syllable, means the antariksha. Antariksha means in between space. Subha ityasau lokaha. Swaha or suvaha means asau, the sky. So earth, mediator space, and then sky above. Maha ityadityaha. And what is that nourished by? Aditya, the sun. Adityena vava sarve loka mahiyante. It is indeed by this sun, or Aditya, that the world is nourished. This loka is nourished. So what you do practically is you find a quiet space, prepare your seat, practice a few rounds of pranayama. Maybe you chant mantra, and then you have to feel yourself connected in this way. Feel the lower base of the body and your sense of presence there, your feeling of being present in that sense of connectivity and the relationship between the earth. You can also visualize the golden plains or a symbol in nature that reminds you of the earth element. Then also, antariksham, with that bhuvaha, you feel your space around you, the mediator space. This is a space too where you feel your sense of connection, that you're in that space with all other sentient beings. You can visualize perhaps the green forest and the flora and fauna around you. And then also the Tao or Sao, the sky. You have to feel that sense of openness above the head and then that spaciousness of the sky. So you can visualize it with your eyes closed, that blue sky. And then also Aditya, the brilliance of the sun. Reflect on that, that's nurturing this world. So though this practice is mostly concerned with reflecting upon the nature outside, we see that there's a connection deeply with, there's a microcosmic version of that inside. The sun inside is the buddhi, or the faculty of clear discernment, the ability of operating that intelligence. Or you could also think of the sun too representing that central principle by which you guide your actions, dharma. And your sense of being open to the possibilities, your sense of feeling a rhythm with others, and your sense of being present moment by moment could be these other three levels, bhuhu, bhuvaha, and suvaha. So this is the first meditation on loka. Continuing. Bhuriteva agnihi, bhuva iti vayuhu, subharityadityah, maha iti chandrama a, chandramasa vava sarvani jyoti gumshe mahiyante. You can repeat after me. Bhuriti va agnihi,
Bhur iti va agni,
bhuva iti vayuhu,
bhuva iti vayu,
subharityadityah,
Suvaritya
varityadityaha,
maha iti chandrama a,
maha
Mahayati
iti chandrama,
Chandramaha
chandramasa
Chandramasa
chandramasa,
Bhava
bhava,
Bhava
Sarvani
Sarvani
sarvani,
Jyoti Gumshi
jointi,
Jyotigumsi
chi,
Mahiyante.
Mahiyante
mahiyante.
So here it's on the night, or Jyoti Gumshi. Jyotisham means luminaries, or it can also refer to astronomy. So here now we're meditating on the night sky. Buhu, Buvaha, Suvaha, and Mahaha. So here, Buhu represents fire, Agni. You can think of this as the fire in the central of the home in the nighttime, providing light. Bhuva means the space in the sky above. Vayuhu. Suvaha is Aditya. There, Aditya means the stars, not the sun. But you can think of the different stars in the sky. Suvarityaditya, yeah, Aditya, the stars. Maha iti chandrama. What is nourishing this nighttime? The moon. Chandramasa vava sarvani jyoti gumshi mahiyanti. It's by the moon that all these vitalities thrive. So moon is also very, very important. Day and night, both cycles are necessary. We find that in the plant and animal kingdom. If you were to disrupt that, it would create a lot of problem. So the science too is that this nighttime needs that moon, that cooling moonlight for growth of plants and herbs. That's also very important. So this is interesting too, because reflecting on night and the importance of moon also plays a big role in Vedic culture, because moon is the deity for mind. So Chandramas Devata is the deity that we connect with mind. Why is that? Because mind, from a deep inner perspective, mind is moon is borrowed light. And same is true for mind. Our sense of consciousness or sentiency is a gift. It has a source in the Brahman, but we don't see that. So that light, or that feeling of I am my mind and what my mind reaches out to perceive through the sense organs, including my body, that's me. So that capacity is given, a gift, and it has a larger source, which we have to recognize. So that's why mind is deity of moon. Moon is a borrowed light. Moon also goes through those 15 phases. We also go through phases. Our mind goes through different phases of sankalpa, vikalpa. We have a thought, we go in that direction, then we counter thought. We go in a different direction. So that kind of vacillation. It's also really interesting too, just to pay special attention to those full moon and new moon days, how your mind is, how the minds of those around you are. So we're seeing that in those 27 days of the orbit around the Earth, moon orbiting, there's a time when the sun and moon have a certain proximity. And when they get into that closeness, that creates a kind of tug with the water element. That gravitational pull is there. That's when the tides come. And that's true too for the mass amount of water in our body. There's a kind of lifting of our emotions, or what we cultivate. So sometimes that's why they say, that's where the lunatic word comes from. The crazies come out. So the meaning of that is not that the full moon makes people crazy. No, the idea is that whatever you've nurtured or whatever you cultivated within yourself is elevated, just like those tides lift up. So most people are not chanting Upanishad or reflecting on themselves or thinking about others. They're lost in their thoughts. Therefore, that gets elevated and it becomes even more intense. So we should be patient and kind and open during such time. So here, moon, we think about the glory of the moon, its luminosity, and you have to picture all this. Similarly, though this meditation is mostly concerned with outside phenomena, the outer world, I can bring it inward too, from a yogic perspective. For example, Bhuhu, when we talk about the Agni can be the fire in the body, the fire at the Nabi. Agnihi, Bhuva iti Vayuhu. The Vayu could be your breath, your own breath. Suvarityadityaha. Those stars could be the different pranic spots or connectivities in the body. Like in Ayurveda, they also talk about marma points. There's certain intense points where larger forms of energy are concentrated. It's similar to the points that they deal with in acupuncture, where just by pressing a few points or poking in a few points, you can create a free flow of energy and then heal the person. There's just some blockage. That's what the disease is, just a blockage. So you just get it to flow again. So those stars within the body you could think of as the different pranic junctions. And mind, our mind as the moon. Maha iti chandrama. Part of the beauty of this is that age-old principle that as you think, you become. So when you start thinking of your mind like a moon, a luminous object, and then your body as this intelligence within and without, you start living that way too. You start feeling the blessedness and richness of life. So in Vedic culture, this Chandrama is the moon, is the mind deity for mind. In that previous one, we were looking at the sun. So, but sometimes the buddhi is given the deity Brahma, the creator, the one who has the intelligence to create, is the deity for the buddhi. Here we're talking about the mind. Continuing. So day meditation, night meditation. Now another big factor that comes into our life is our culture. And for Vedic culture, naturally it's the Vedas. It's these source books of wisdom. So, Bhuriti Vairichaha, Bhuva iti samani, Suvariti yajugumshi, Maha iti Brahma, Brahmanavava sarve Veda mahiyante. So you can repeat after me. Bhuriti
Bhuritiva
Richaha,
Richaha
Bhuva iti samani,
Bhuva iti samani
Suvariti
Suvarti
yajugumshi,
Vijugumsi
Maha iti Brahma,
Maha iti Brahma
Brahmana,
Brahmana
Vava sarve,
Bhava Sarve
Veda mahiyante.
Veda Mahiyante.
So this is interesting, and it requires a little unpacking because of the cultural context. So this particular mantra is having the student reflect on those utterances, buhu, buvaha, suvaha, mahaha, and connecting them to the Vedas. So for buhu, it's told that that connects with the Rig Veda. Bhuditiva richa. Richa means the Rig Veda. Bhuva iti samani. For the Bhuvaha, the Samaveda is given. Suvarditi yajugumshi. The Yajurveda, the Suvaha. Atharvana Veda is not mentioned here.
Right.
So it's something totally different. So here, Maha iti Brahma. What is that Mahaha, or what is that fourth transcendental factor? He says it's Brahma. Brahma here, Brahmana, means the Om, or Brahma as the creator. Brahman, or Brahma, the four-faced Brahma as the creator. The idea behind this is that with creation comes this wisdom. The wisdom that's found in the Vedas comes along with the creation itself. But let us take a deeper look at what these Vedas could mean in our present day life. So in the previous mantra, we were talking about mind. And mind is a very important instrument and essential for having a greater understanding of how mind works for a more intelligent living. So practically, mind is the seat of our emotions, which can have a tremendous force on all dimensions of our life. And mind also contains memory. That memory is typically divided into two parts. One is more logical memory. It's more explicit. It's conscious decision, controlled. It involves problem solving, and it's typically a lot slower to update. The other kind of memory is emotional memory. Emotional memory is more implicit and it's experiential. So it's more trial-based, what you learn and get a felt sense of. And it's part of our robust survival system. This is more emotional memory. There, it's very fast and can update a lot faster. For example, when we learn something and have a cognitive understanding of it, that may take time to get a new cognitive understanding or a new way about how we process the world. But the felt sense of the world can be very quick and fast and then give us a lot of data about how we act.
Mhm.
So here, I brought that up because the first symbol, Buhu, was connected with Rig Veda. Rig Veda is important because from our present age, how we could interpret this is the mantras that you chant, your japa practice, and it could also mean too just what you repeat. So mantra means that kind of repetition too. So Rig Veda has a lot of mantras, and
Mhm.
those mantras are praise and repeated. So you can think about the mind being structured or influenced by this repetitive action. Similarly, Bhuvaha, you can think of personally for Samaveda, you can think of Sama song that also represents the season, the change in season. So how that influences us, our environment, and the different changes in season. It's amazing. You'll find it does impact the way that we behave in a large extent. If you meet somebody who lives in a southern or warmer climate or culture, you'll even notice the opening up of their speech. There's a lot more looseness in their vowels, which may contribute to being more emotional too. Whereas you find people in the north, their language is very tight and constricted. There's a lot more contraction there. And even influences diet and so many things with their lifestyle. So they may be more cold emotionally. So all that plays a big role. Samani. Suvariti Yajugumshi. So what about the Yajurveda? How do we relate that? Yajurveda is all ritual, more ritualistic. So what are you practicing daily? What are your rituals? You can also think of it too as what do you give? That influences too. Because in ritual you give gift. So what are you giving? And all of this is centered in what's called the wellspring of knowledge. All these Vedas, meaning knowledge, is centered in the source of knowledge. The source here is emphasized as Lord Brahma, or the Om. So that Om means is the repository for all knowledge. And we find that because anytime you seek to know something or seek the truth in something, more knowledge manifests. That's why I truly believe there's no end to science and scientific discoveries, because the more you look into the truth and more you try to explore it, the more it will bring more knowledge, a reservoir of knowledge. So mind in this memory is typically set up in early childhood. A lot of those explicit and implicit memories are deeply embedded into the mind in the first 12 years of living. So what your environment was like that, your household and your family, the different relationships and experiences you had, a lot of our memory is situated around there. But also it influences our mind is also influenced by our culture, the tools that we use, the beliefs that we have, all that goes into it. And that's when we set up a lot of different kinds of, in psychology, I believe they call them schemas. Schemas means how you, your association, like what you expect, your map of the world really. A schema you can think about like, what is my map of the world? How do I understand reality around me? And from that understanding, you base your life. So those schemas are like, how do I, what do I expect from around me? So that sense of security or expectation around me. And then also adaptation, like how will I respond to it? This makes up our memory landscape. What's awesome now is um, psychologists are talking about this phenomenon called memory reconsolidation, where you can take old memories and old ways of understanding how things are and re-update them, that you don't have to be stuck with one level of understanding, and you can completely transform that memory. Though some people thought in the past that once you have that impression or memory, it's stuck like that. There's no going back. But it's not true. You can bring that new memory to the surface through meditation and then bringing that compassion, openness, awareness to it, and then transform it. So the way of practically doing that is this identifying where you feel stuck in your life. You may ask that question, where am I stuck, or what's bothering me? And when you ask that and give that memory a potential to arise, or that thought a potential to arise, typically it will be associated with some memory. If you have the boldness and braveness to stay with that and really get the felt sense of it, bring the light of awareness to it, it will transform. Another way to transform it too is just to break that belief by seeing the falsity in it. To see that it's no longer applicable anymore, but it served you in the past. I'll give you like an example. Let us say that when you were younger, um, anytime that you would ask for something like a personal need, that you were scolded or that you were reprimanded for that. So what you did as a result of being reprimanded for just expressing one of your basic needs is that you felt that it was easier to hide, or it was maybe easier to shut down in such situation. And that shutdown or that hiding prevented a certain security blanket and was useful during that time. Because if you tried to press mom and dad, they'd just get more angry. So you had to protect yourself by doing that. And there's nothing wrong in that. But what happens is that we carry that memory with us into adulthood and still apply that same old memory to a new situation, which doesn't require it anymore. That's when we have to ask ourselves these deep questions and resolve those inner confusions. And there we do that by having gratitude for that first. I see it served me, but it's no longer serving a purpose. Meaning that when I have to ask for something in my workplace, I start feeling my whole body break down. I feel like I become depressed and sad and nervous. But that's no longer serving you. And your boss is not your parents. So you have to go back to that memory, pratiprasavam, you have to go back, and then you have to sit with it. Bring that kind, compassionate awareness to it, or simply have the boldness to update it and say this need not be true anymore. So let me break the myth by just asking for my needs. And then when your boss says, sure, no problem, you have a very clear impression in your mind now that didn't serve anymore. So this is how you update those schemas. All this plays a role in culture. So bhuriti varichaha, bhuva iti samani, suvariti yajugumshi, maha iti brahma, brahmanavava sarve veda mahiyante. So you disconfirm that belief by bringing a new impression of that, or simply it can be disconfirmed too by just sitting with it, being patient, shining the awareness on it. There, when you shine on it or you watch it, you're not going towards or away or against. You're just seeing it. It's amazing that by just bringing that light, sometimes our problems unfold. Just coming back to that peaceful presence that you are. Sometimes problems will just work themselves out on their own. Okay, we'll finish our session this evening just by chanting this next mantra. This is the fourth. So we saw 16 factors. So far we've done 12 on day, night, and now culture with the Vedas. Here we're coming to, here we're meditating on the individual, the wins in the individual. Bhuriti vai pranaha, bhuva ityapanaha, suvariti vyanaha, maha ityannam, anena vava sarve e pranamahiyante. Okay. Bhuriti vai
Bhurjivai
pranaha,
Pranaha
bhuva ityapanaha,
Bhuva Iti Pranaha
suvariti vyanaha,
Suvariti Vyanaha
Maha ityannam
Maha Ityannam
anena vava
Anena Vava
sarve
Sarve
prana mahiyante.
Prana Mahiyante.
So here it's a meditation on the pranas.
Yeah.
And prana here, meaning there's one force within you that is operating in 5 different ways. So 3 of those ways are mentioned. The other 2 will come later in a different form of vipassana. So here we talk about the buhu being the prana. Prana means the way, the in and out breath. And it can also mean the force by which you can ingest things. That can be through all the senses, actually. So not just the breath, but you can think about that force which carries things in. So what you're processing through sight and sound, touch, so on. Bhuvaha is the apana. Apana means that releasing force or downward moving wind. So the force by which elimination takes place through the feces or also through the menstruation process or the downward wind. So that moving down. And then from a psychological standpoint, apana can also mean the ability to let go. So part of that previous discussion on culture, we're talking about reconsolidating memory or re-updating memory. In a subtle way, you can think of apana as that force to let things pass or move. Suvaditi vyanaha. Suvaha is connected with vyana. Vyana is that distributing factor. So after you ingest through the senses or by mouth, you're masticating the food, swallowing it, going to the stomach, then that's getting processed. Once that refines element develops, then it spreads and nourishes out through the limbs. So that wind that's moving from the heart space out through the edge of your skin is vyana. Maha ityannam. And annam, or food, here is the transcendental. The transcendental aspect here is the food that you consume. Because that food is that vitality that you're getting in food is transforming into your mind. So Upanishad shows us too in a very simple model that once you eat something, there's a certain portion of it that doesn't have any nutritional value. That gets excreted, becomes the fecal matter. But there's the parts that remain become the flesh. And when that gets further refined, it becomes the mind. So you get some insight into this if you've ever gone on a fast, just water fast. You'll notice this. It's really interesting. When you don't eat for a few days, you'll find that first you'll find that you produce little waste, fecal matter. Secondly, is you'll start noticing this second aspect of the flesh. You'll notice the difference in your skin. Depending on where you're starting that fast, let us say you didn't have much to begin with, then you'll start noticing hotness in the skin or splotchiness on the skin. Or perhaps if you need a great cleanse, you might start noticing the pores open up and the face becoming brighter. A lot of that depends on your constitution, your dosha. But you'll notice it on the skin. And then similarly too, if you go 3+ days, you'll start to feel that mind's shutting down, becomes very quiet. And a lot of times that can also invoke that kind of fear of survival instinct kicks in. If you haven't prepared or practiced fasting much, you'll feel, I need food, especially at nighttime. You go to sleep and you feel that something's not right. I might just pass off here. It's a very strange experience. But it's worth trying, at least once. I recommend doing that just with water, maybe for a day. Go a day without food, and you'll be perfectly fine. More than that, you might need some preparation. So, annam. What's amazing too is that annam also, if you're eating the proper foods, it will have water content in it. And that water, when refined, we see obviously water, the one part of it becomes urine. It's not necessary. But then the other part becomes the blood. And the most refined part becomes our prana itself. So pay attention to what you eat and drink. This is also a little strange too in the Western culture that we carry water bottles around. I see lots of yogis coming to ashram and then bringing lots of water bottles. But you don't need to drink water all the time. If you have the right diet with raw or with fresh vegetables and good grains and fruits and all that, it will have water content in it. So you just take water, you sips throughout your meal, or maybe a glass here, a glass in the morning, glass in the midday, glass in the night. You're fine. So water also takes care of that um, activity of the prana and helps enable that food to pass and circulate throughout the body. So these are your meditations to expand the mind. Think about the glory of the day, the nourishment through the sun, then also those vitalities, the night. Then third was the culture, what you're studying and repeating, what your seasons and environment is, and then also what you're giving, how that is affecting the mind. And then lastly, too, reflect on the intelligence as the winds moving throughout your body. All these keep us from feeling so stuck and so limited in our personal world, and help us see the larger creation of Ishvara, or the Saguna Brahman. So Bhuhu, Bhuvaha, Suvaha, Maha is the fourth. So tha va etaschatasrashtaturdha chatasrashtatasra vyahritayah tayo veda saveda brahma sarve e asmai deva balimavahanti. So these are the four vyahritis, or four connection meditations. He who knows this, Veda, Saha, such a person, they have a deeper relationship with the Brahman, the manifestation of Brahman. And good things, Sarve, all good things come to such a person. Sarve asme deva balima vahanti. Literally, it means the gods carry blessings to you. The gods carry offerings to you. So think on that. We'll explore a little bit more next week. And then a yoga meditation is to follow on moving through the inner channel, through the crown, and identifying with the space outside. It's pretty powerful. So we'll explore that next week. Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.